She swore she was with friends. A convenient little truth she folded into her pocket before she left. The kind of phrase that sounded like reassurance and had the elasticity of a well-worn alibi. "Just drinks with the girls," she'd said, humming as she straightened her hair in the doorway. I believed the ritual of it. The shrug, the kiss on the cheek, the practiced rhythm couples fall into when they trust each other's small freedoms. That night the apartment felt patient and ordinary. Laundry folded, a kettle cooling on the stove, the dog curled like a comma on the rug. Time moved in the small, predictable breaths of a life between two people. By midnight, the usual comfort had frayed into an edge. Texts arrived with sporadic politeness, and on my way, that came far too late. A selfie cropped just so, nothing that satisfied. Only little paper-thin proofs that could be smoothed over with excuses. I decided, with the ridiculous confidence of men who think dignity must be earned through restraint, to stay put and wait for the morning. But morning has a way of bringing everything into harsher light. The taxi pulled into the driveway at dawn with an unremarkable clack of tires. She came in with the kind of soft, careful steps people make when they want to be forgiven without asking. She smelled faintly of perfume and pretended sleep in the way people do when they've rehearsed innocence. I didn't wake immediately. I let the house hold its breath. The pause between two heartbeats is longer than most people imagine. When she finally came to the kitchen, blinking against the light, she found me awake and purposeful at the table. I had a folder open, an itemized restaurant bill smoothed flat like a paper contract. She saw it, and a small color left her face. "What's that?" she asked, a question that tried on confusion like a new dress. I pushed the page toward her, letting it land between us like an accusation that had been carefully folded into evidence. The bill was a quiet thing. Embossed header, a list of cocktails, a shared dessert, 2 entrees, the soft arithmetic of a night spent in laughter. The unusual part of it, what made my gut drop in the kitchen sound too small, wasn't the cost but the names printed at the top. Only 2 signatures. 2 names scrawled where the customary table for 4 would have been. Her name and his. I expected a denial so immediate it would knock the armor off whatever deception had been built. Instead, she made a small, practiced sound I'd heard before, the inhalation of a woman assembling a careful narrative. "It was only him and me for a bit," she said, the words flat with the attempted understatement. "The others left early." She offered the explanation like a cheap placard held over a crime scene. Information that insisted the scene looked different depending on the angle. The bill sat on the table like a slow-acting ember. It had the mechanical authority of printed ink. Timestamps, menu codes, the server's tiny scrawl in the corner noting 2 guests. Objectivity has a particular cruelty. It refuses to be read as anything but what it is. It said less about intent and more about presence. Even if there had been friends earlier, the paper argued for some measurable time that mattered she had been only with him. If I had wanted drama, I could have staged it. I could have turned the kitchen into a courtroom and demanded confessions, legal in tone and theatrical in hurt. I could have catapulted the bill into the air and let it flutter like a flag of surrender. Instead, I did something I had learned from the long, dry lessons of disappointment. I asked for the story and prepared to listen to how she would tell it. People who lie often reveal the truth in the way they fold their sentences. She started with the intoxication of the night. Music, laughter, the kind of conversation that bends the truth into jokes. She painted him as a colleague, someone who'd been around the periphery of our lives and then, step by step, not so accidentally, become nearer. Her voice carried the cadence of someone rehearsing regret. "It wasn't planned," she said. "We just spent too long talking." She tried to make the moment tiny, a footnote in a larger book that remained ours. I listened for the tremor that would tell me whether she believed her own words. Her hands trembled slightly when she reached for the mug, leaving a ring of steam on the table. She did not swear the affair away. Instead, she tried to reframe it as a poor choice rather than a deliberate division of life. Words, I'd learned, are elastic, very good at stretching until they break. I asked him nothing that evening. I could have called, confronted, or demanded the raw spectacle the movies promise. But spectacle heals nothing. It polishes pain into a public commodity. What I wanted was the unshowy truth. Where this left us, how the count of names on a single bill had changed the arithmetic of our life together. She tried to explain adultery into small pieces, hoping perhaps I would reassemble them into something whole. She offered apologies, practiced and abundant. She cataloged reasons, loneliness, attention. Something missing she hadn't named until the moment was too late. There is a particular loneliness in watching someone try to make a mistake smaller than it is. Apologies flutter like moths at a window. They look like intent, but are eventually burned. I told her I needed time, that the house needed to be a place of clarity rather than theater. She stayed the night on the couch, a tentative pilgrim not yet sure if sanctuary would be returned to her. I slept in the spare room. Distance often feels like punishment. Sometimes it is simply scaffolding for thought. In the days that followed, the bill kept appearing in my mind in small, insistent flashes, the way a bruise glows under certain light. I didn't spread the story like gossip. I didn't plaster the names across social feeds or make anyone an accomplice. Instead, I set a boundary. I told her the little practical things that stitch a life together will be watched now. Phone passwords, social plans, the soft inventory of commitments. She complied with an eagerness that smelled like fear. Fear is a powerful motivator and a poor substitute for love. She asked for forgiveness in ways that promise renovation. Therapy, transparency, the scaffolding of scheduled check-ins that sounded loving because they were structured. I agreed to some of it and refused other parts. Repairs aren't built with promises alone. We negotiated the geography of our days like two cartographers trying to redraw a map that had been torn. She moved her coffee mug to the other side of the sink. I rearranged the closet where his coat had once brushed her as an absence. We performed the practicalities of reconciliation, while the more tender parts remained untested and raw. Once, in a fit of stubborn curiosity, I drove past a restaurant where the bill had been made out. It sat there under warm lights, indifferent to my presence. Couples laughed behind glass, and the host smiled with professional warmth. I thought about how two names on a slip of paper could ripple outward to become years of altered trust. The sign on the door meant little to the truth. The paper inside was the ledger.